Here we go, everybody. So we are on page 344, and last time on Monday, what was it, Monday? Today's Wednesday? Yeah, okay. So Monday, Jonathan had asked the question at the end of the shir. If you remember, Jonathan, you asked, what's the opposite of hardening somebody's heart? Right, remember you asked that? And I told you to ask it the next year, which is now. So let's talk about that just for a little bit, because there is a...
I was debating inwardly to interject, but I was going to not, because...
Why?
Because I guess it's just, you did ask, but my default thing is in some sense to like tilt towards non-interruption.
Oh, that's very polite of you. Now so I'll interrupt your non-interruption. Okay, so the question that was asked was, what's the opposite of it? Which is an enchanting question, because I never thought of it until you asked it. What was the opposite of hardening somebody's heart? So if we remember the definition of hardening somebody's heart, which we said by Paro, according to most commentaries, is not that his free choice was taken away, as much as his free choice was raised up. Is this window open? Can somebody check just to see if there's a window? It's not open, is it? Hardening his heart meant that his balance is raised to where the normal person's balance wouldn't be raised. Where we said the example was that if a cobra comes crawling through the window, so there's a 99% chance that we're going to jump up and run. Whereas by Paro, it remained 50-50. It remained 50-50. No, don't open it. I didn't want it open. I wanted it because it felt like cold air is coming. Some cold air is coming in the door or something. Please, please close it. Close, yeah. So the opposite of, to me, in my understanding, the opposite of hardening a person's heart is what we call siyata d'shmaya. Siyata d'shmaya means what we call divine. Hashem gives us divine assistance. Now, this manifests itself in certain ways. First of all, it says that habolet taher, right? Habolet tameh poschin lo. Somebody wants to contaminate themselves by doing averas. Hashem opens the door. The door is open for them. Yeah, the opportunity is there. Habolet taher misayinoso. Somebody wants to purify himself. Hashem helps him. When it comes to contamination, who wants to defile himself, Hashem doesn't stop him unless you've earned the privilege and you have a schus somehow that HaKadosh Baruch Hu stops you. But the average person, if a person wants to do Avera, I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to push you, but I'm not going to stop you. Somebody wants to purify himself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually helps him. He misayinoso. Now, the clearest area where this comes up is the Vilna Gaon's explanation of, people like gossiping. People speak Lashon Hara. The Chafetz Chaim says that Lashon Hara is not a physical desire. Why is it, there's a chumash over here, please help yourself to a chumash, maybe pass this young man a chumash. Why is it that people enjoy speaking Lashon Hara, gossiping about other people? Soap operas on TV. Right? What were they always talking about on the soap operas? They always talk about other people. I was actually shocked when I got soap operas when I was growing up. Who watched soap operas? My mother, my bubby, the girls. They watch the soap operas. My father used to stand there once in a while. He'd stop in front of the TV when the soap opera's on. My father would look at it, typical Litvak a reaction. My father, he would just look at these dead people. He said, "Don't these people ever work?" All they did was talk. Yeah, the doctor and the nurse are busy talking on what do you call it, on General Hospital. People are dying all over the place, and the doctor and the nurse are talking about, well, Claire, right? Somebody's name was always Claire. I don't know why that was. Talk. Why are you talking Lashon Hara? Talk about other people. And the Chafetz Chaim says there's clearly no physical desire here. So the Vilna Gaon says an interesting principle. When a person does either a mitzvah or an avera, you create a vacuum. Listen carefully. You do an avera, let's say a person does an avera. When they do an avera, they create a vacuum. That vacuum means that I have a certain internal urge, and that urge can only be satisfied by doing that avera again. So if a person speaks Lashon Hara, for example, there's an internal vacuum that can only be filled by speaking Lashon Hara. Which what that really means essentially is it's become more difficult for me now to do tshuva because I've created this urge. It's almost like an addiction. Any addiction that a person, you could break a caffeine addiction. I don't know why you would want to, but you could break a caffeine addiction. You could break a nicotine addiction, but the more addicted you become, the more difficult it is to break. If you have a couple of cups of coffee, you could stop. You keep drinking coffee, it's going to be more difficult to break that addiction. You become, quote unquote, addicted to an Avera. It's not just the pleasure of the Avera, there's actually a deeper spiritual urge pushing you in that direction. Because you've got, hold for 1 second, hold for 1 second. Because in that urge can only be fulfilled by doing that Avera again. You can overcome it and wipe it out. But the job becomes harder the more deeply a person is addicted to that Avera. When it comes to a mitzvah, it's the same thing. If a person learns Torah, that's why, who learns the most Torah? The people who always are learning Torah, they have the greatest urge to learn Torah. The Gemara compares people learning Torah. Torah is water. So the Gemara, the Medrash compares a fish is in the ocean, yet when it rains, the fish jumps up to get even more water. A person who loves learning Torah, he has never said he's like a hungry man. He's like a hungry man eating a hot dog. Right? Watch a guy eating a hot dog for lunch. Within 3 bites, he basically inhales the hot dog. Right? He's hungry. Watch a person. The Reb Chaim Kanievsky was the person who he learned the most Torah and wanted to learn the most Torah. Why was that? Because he was addicted to Torah. But it's more than that. At a deeper level, that means the Vilna Gaon says you're creating a vacuum and that vacuum can only be fulfilled. You've created, and that's what I call the siyata d'shmaya. You've got this urge to do the mitzvah now. A person who does chesed wants to do more chesed. A person who gives tzedakah wants to give more tzedakah. He's creating this vacuum, a positive vacuum that can only be fulfilled by satiated by doing this mitzvah again. That's how the Vilna Gaon explains it. The same thing when it comes to an Avera. So what you call, what's the opposite of hardening the heart? The opposite of hardening is when a person is, I don't know that it's a pure opposite, right? I don't know what any pure opposites are. I don't know, people say, what's the opposite of salt? Sugar. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe the opposite of salt is pepper. I don't know. The only opposites we know are men and women. That we know. Those are opposites because that's Chazal say. Men are fire, men are water, women are fire. That we know. Figure that one out, boys. Yeah, and try to make those two get along. Yeah, that's part of the miracle. So we know that there are some water and fire are opposites, right? They cannot coexist in those sense. What's the opposite of hardening heart? I don't know, but there is a concept of your heart is inclined in a certain direction. How does your heart get inclined? By moving in that direction. Your heart is inclined in that direction. If you've ever taken up any practice, like playing a musical instrument or juggling, the more you do it, the more you want to do it. The more you do it. Okay, there a lot of it has to do with because there's a certain enjoyment of actually being able to do it properly. So now I want to do it even better. I want to do it even better. But when it comes to in ruchnius pursuits and spiritual pursuits, that's the idea. The more you do a mitzvah, the more what they call habit forming. The world calls it's a habit. You know what a real good example would be? I was thinking about this yesterday. The best I forgot. I thought about this example. Jogging. Jogging. If any of you have ever jogged, if any of you have jogged on a regular basis. I used to jog on a regular basis. A couple of years ago, I jogged on when I was in peak physical education shape. What do you call it? I was a phys ed major. In college, I was a phys ed major. There was a time when I was a junkie. And I would jog. I jogged with weights on my feet. Right. Yeah, no, I was in pretty good shape. And that's how I was able to get up to the rim. You grab the rim with both hands and jab. What do you call it? Yeah, we had a Nerf rim in our living room. So what do you call it? So when you jog, a guy says to you, yeah, by the way, I'm going to be taking up jogging one of these days. Oh yeah? Oh yeah, this is a guy who's sitting on a couch with a can of peanuts watching TV. So I plan on starting to jog one of these days. Yeah, why don't you do it right now? Well, not now. Now I'm busy with my peanuts. Yeah. Well, you've been in the same position every day for the last 6 years. What makes you think tomorrow's going to be different? Yet when you go the first time, Once you've gone the first, I got that first one in. Then you do it a second time. When you're in the habit, you basically need the jogging for a high. Isn't that true? Have you ever been jogging? And you actually get a runner's high. Even though a woman comedian once said, "I'll take up jogging. People tell me jogging is wonderful. I'll take up jogging when I see joggers smiling." You know, right? So a woman comedian said, but at the end of the day, when you do the mitzvah creates, the guy's panting, comes into the house panting. The guy with the peanuts on the couch, he looks like he's in a good mood, you know. So when you get into the habit of doing something, it creates that spiritual vacuum. So they call it a habit, but there's a certain high that you actually get from doing it. One of the area that's most difficult is davening. Davening takes a long time to develop a taste for davening. And I told you, davening never comes at a good time. Because in the morning you're tired, at lunch you're hungry, at mincha you're hungry, and at Ma'ariv you're hungry and tired. Right? So it's just never at a convenient time. It's not like, like if I could daven at 9:30 every morning after eating Cheerios for breakfast, I'd be good, but it doesn't work that way. So it takes time to develop. But once you develop a taste for davening, so then the davening becomes actually an enjoyable thing. Okay. Mayor, what were we going to ask?
I was just wondering who was the author of this approach to
The Vilna Gaon.
the back of that.
The Vilna Gaon. The Gra. So the Gra, the word, it stands for Hagon Rabbeinu Eliyahu. And when people say nowadays in Hebrew, the Gaon means the genius. The Gaon means the Vilna Gaon. The Gaon means lahavdil. In hockey, when people said the great one, it was Gretzky. There was the great. And in basketball, it was one first name only. It just said Michael. That wasn't quite as unique as LeBron, right? You didn't need LeBron. You call him LeBron because of his name, not because of his skills, right? Michael there's one Michael, one Michael. That was known. So, lahavdil, the Gaon means the Vilna Gaon. Now, when we talk about it, it doesn't mean Rav Hai Gaon, who was also called the Gaon, Rav Sadia Gaon. They were always called by their names. The Gaon means the Vilna Gaon. That's how we refer to them in the Torah world. Okay? Now, take a look at page 344. By the way, when I had a guy here at Ohr Somayach, oh, you love this. I had a guy at Ohr Somayach years ago. He had a basket from an arcade. You could buy in the stores, you could buy these little Nerf baskets and stuff. But this guy had one from one of these arcades, where you shoot at what do you call it? He had like an arcade basket, which he gave to me. This thing was unbelievable. So I went home and I put it up in my living room. Yeah, and my wife was okay with it. I put it up. She let me put it up in the living room.
How big is this thing?
It's not, it's perfect living room size, right? It's perfect living room size, and I had great games. We played one-on-one in there. You can't block. You can't block with your hands because you can only block with your head. It was unbelievable. So one night my wife went out. We didn't have kids yet, and one night my wife went out she went out to a wedding. So I took some tape and I put it on the floor. I had a free throw lane, right? And I put like a 3-point circle. And then the Bulls played the Knicks. We were winning 88-4 in the second quarter. I was having the best time. Then my wife walks into the house, and she sits down in the living room. I said, "How was the chasna?" She goes, "Oh yeah, it was great." And then also she goes, "Oh no," right? And she starts going for the tape. I said, "No, let me explain." She goes, "Oh, you're going to explain, all right." And that was the end of my court. No, but she left up the basket. She was good enough to leave up the basket. Yeah, it was great. It was unbelievable. Okay, I ramble. In any event, on page 344, boy, I missed that thing. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hashem says to Moshe, okay, now, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, Netei yadcha al hashamayim, V'hi choshech al eretz Mitzrayim v'yamesh choshech. Now the word v'yamesh choshech from the word Hebrew word mamash, which is a tangible darkness, something beyond our comprehension. That means that there's a darkness that's going to be so thick that the first 3 days they couldn't see anything. The second 3 days was a tangible darkness where they couldn't even move. Right? It was like being stuck in black marshmallow fluff, right? You can't move. They couldn't even sit up. If you're sitting, you couldn't stand. You're standing, you couldn't sit. And there's a tangible darkness. Now, there's actually a place in Israel where you could go where they want people, they do tours for people to experience blindness. There's a place. Did you do it?
Yeah, for jail, you guys took us on that. It was
Not
awesome.
you guys. I wasn't there, but those guys,
association.
those my colleagues, yeah, my colleagues who are into this sort of thing. So they may have taken it, and I understand the person leading it. I think is a blind, right? The person who leads the tour is blind. So there's a sensation over here of absolute darkness. Now, one of the commentaries says the Torah Tamima says it was actually some sort of membrane that grew down over their eyes. And that's why he says from Yamesh Choshech that there's something tangible here. And I saw I think the Yalkut Me'am Loi says that it was actually an intensely bright light shining in the eyes. When you have intensely bright, which I could, sometimes Parshas HaShavua, I was, Motzei Shabbos, I was in the hospital having my retina checked. So the guy dilated my pupils. You know that sensation when they dilate your pupils? One of life's great experiences. They dilate the pupils, and then they shine these intensely bright lights in your eyes. And I was thinking of this medrash when I was going through this, that the guy's, he's shining these lights in my eyes, then you have a headache for 2 days after the, what do you call it? So there is such an opinion. Most opinion is darkness, and it's a tangible darkness. And there is one opinion that says, the medrash says, that Hashem brought the darkness of Gehinom on them. What does that mean? The darkness of Gehinom. The darkness of Gehinom. That means we always talk about that Hashem put away the light for the tzaddikim in the future, right? There's the light of the future, the light of, we always talk about light. Light always symbolizes good. Darkness is always exile, something depressing, something black. But at a deeper level, darkness means, one of the problems with darkness is you feel alone. There are actually sources that said that they also saw all sorts of strange images and heard all sorts of strange sounds. And while this was happening, which terrified them. and the worst part of this torture of all is during those second 3 days of darkness, what was happening? There were Jewish people who had light. And the Jewish people were walking through the Egyptian houses, opening drawers, and checking for where all the valuables were. And then when they left Egypt, they would go to their neighbors, and Hashem said, ask the Egyptian neighbors for all their valuables. So the Jew would go up to the Egyptian and say, hey, Walid, maybe I could have that priceless golden, what do you call it, golden necklace you got in your second drawer on the right. And he said, oh, I don't have a, oh, yeah, you do. There it is underneath it. What do you call it? Yeah, I'll take that. And the Jews opened it and go, now, imagine you're in your house and you can't move, and all you hear is drawers opening and closing in your house. And not only that, people are whispering in Yiddish. And you can't move, and all you hear is somebody open, you hear a drawer open, the guy says to the nigga, ooh, ooh, that's a nice thing over there, and they get it. And this is happening, and you're defenseless. There's absolutely nothing that you could do. Imagine how you feel. Okay, so what is the darkness of Gehinom? Why is Gehinom darkness? Why is it darkness, the blackness of Gehinom? We always think of Gehinom as fires, which it is, by the way. Right? I mentioned to the guys in Gemara today, the Midrashim talk about how there are 7 levels of Gehinom, and the fire of each level of Gehinom is 60 times as hot as the previous fire. It's bad. And they talk, and obviously it's not a physical fire, but physical fire because it is the most spiritual, most non-tangible physical item that we have in this world is fire. And the fire indicates what kind of suffering a person goes through in Gehinom in the cleansing process. And if you need to experience it, if you're wondering what it's like, not that we are, none of us are going to be there, we're going to be looking at the other people, but if a person has ever experienced a sense of embarrassment or shame, right? There's almost a sense that I'm burning. I'm burning when I'm embarrassed. You're almost paralyzed with embarrassment. And so the darkness of Gehinom represents that a person is now alone with himself. And part of that suffering, when you're in a pitch black room, nobody can move, you're all alone. Ever in a situation where the electricity goes out, and also pitch black, and it's terribly disconcerting, and you're by yourself. You're all by yourself. The suffering in Gehinom, each person suffers on his own. That itself is a form of suffering. Because there's a concept of tzoras rabim chatzi nechama. Did you ever hear that idea? When the community suffers, where they say in English, misery loves company. Why is that? Well, misery loves company. Misery loves company. What's the difference to you if a guy loses all his money in the stock market and everybody else, and your neighbor lost his money, say, all right, it's not so bad. It's a little bit of a relief. You know, if you found out that something happened to you and something happened to the other guy also, it's like in high school when you got in trouble in high school, right? So if you got in trouble alone, you're really stewing. But when the door opens in the principal's office, they throw your friend in also. Now, he got caught also doing whatever it was he was doing, either injecting, snorting, or whatever it was that he was doing, right? And he gets thrown into the office with you. Then there's almost a sense of, there's like a little bit of a relief there. Why is that? Why is that? Itamar, now you wouldn't know from these things, Itamar, but why is that if the other guy got in trouble, it was okay? It's like strength in numbers. It's much deeper than that. The answer is that when a person is suffering in life, let's say a person suffers a loss. Part of the intensity of the suffering that a person feels he's alone. And when somebody else is sharing that agony, it takes away from it. It's a relief. It's tzoras rabim chatzi nechama. Remember we spoke about how they blew shofar on Yom Kippur, and all the slaves went free. All the Hebrew hired ones went free. Everybody has to, and you got to give them money when they go. And the commentaries say one of the reasons that they did this was that we're all in the same boat together here. We're all in the same boat together. Why does that relieve a person? Because part of suffering, anytime, any form of suffering, a person just feels he's alone. That's part of the idea of visiting somebody at the house of mourning. You know, the Gemara says the reward, when you visit somebody, nobody should ever have to go. But if you have to go to somebody's house to comfort a mourner, the Gemara says the comforting and the mourner, the reward is for silence. Isn't that interesting? Silence. Why should there be silence? Why silence? I mean, you're going to comfort a mourner. People have said all the time, I have to go comfort a mourner. I'm so nervous, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. The answer is you don't say anything. Unless they speak to you, you don't say anything. Because your comfort is not what you say. The comfort is you're showing the person you're not alone. By your physical presence being there, you're showing this person you're not alone. We're with you. And that's what's hurting the person. A person in Gehinom, the ultimate Gehinom, you're by yourself. You're in pitch black. By yourself, living with yourself, existing by yourself. That's the Gehinom. That's the suffering of Gehinom. Now, the Torah then says, fourth line, Lo ra'u ish es achiv, they didn't see each other. V'lo kamu ish mitachtav shloshes yamim. U'lechol b'nei Yisrael ya'or b'moshvosam. The Jewish people had light. So Paro calls Moshe Rabbeinu, and he says, okay, go. Vayikra Paro al Moshe v'yomer l'chu yivdu es Hashem rak tzonchem u'bekarchem yutza gam tapchem yelechim achem. So Moshe Rabbeinu says to Paro, no. We're not leaving anything behind over here. Vayomer Moshe gam atati tein biyadeinu zvachim v'olos v'sin l'Hashem l'keinu. We're going to take our cattle. We're taking our, and not only that, you're going to even give us stuff to go out. And eventually Paro says to Moshe, get out of here. I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to see you anymore. Don't come back. And then the Torah says, the next page, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, Od nega echad al vi'al Paro v'al Mitzrayim. One more plague. And you notice that the word plague is called a nega. And we spoke about this once. What does nogea mean in Hebrew? What is nogea? Touch. Negia, nogea, to touch. Why is a nega called, why is a plague? You know, the article says, one more plague. Why is a plague called a nega? To touch. And the answer is this goes to the entire purpose of all these plagues. This is the entire purpose of every one of these plagues in Mitzrayim. What was the point of all of this? The point was to demonstrate that there is a God who is involved in the day-to-day running of life at the most minutest details. If you could cause one firstborn to die and the guy next to him not to die, when you touch something, that's a very, very direct, specific contact. To touch something, I'm touching this point, that was a very precise act of contact. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, I'm going to show you one more precise act of contact. If he drinks blood and he drinks water, that's very, very precise. You're making a distinction between this person because he's Jewish and this person because he's Egyptian. That's extremely, extremely precise. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm going to bring one more act of precision on the Egyptians. And what's that going to be? It's going to be and then Paro's going to send you out. And then the Torah says one of the most puzzling things you could possibly find in the Torah. Third line, Shem says to Moshe, Daber na be'oznei ha'am, please tell the people, V'yishalu ish me'es re'eu v'isha me'es re'utasa, each man from his fellow, his fellow Egyptian, their neighbors, and a woman from her fellow, from her friend, klei chesef u'chlei zahav. Please, Moshe Rabbeinu, ask the Jewish people, they're leaving Egypt, ask them to ask the Egyptians for gold and silver. If you stop and think about it, the Gemara says, Hashem said, please convince them to do this. I mean, gentlemen, we're talking about Jews. We're telling Jews to ask for free money. I twist my arm, man. What is it? Sounds like I said, please, Moshe Rabbeinu, convince the people to ask them for what he called. Why? Because I told Avram Avinu that when they leave, in the promise, I said they're going to lay out with a lot of property. Do me a favor, get them to ask for the free gold and silver. I mean, honestly, ever seen Jews at a kiddush on shul? Right? Ever see Jews like kiddush on shul and trying to get and then get him out with the guy. Okay, everybody out. We got to close up over here. And always that guy's pulling at that last piece of. Why? Not because of the kugel, because it's free. It's free. If they would charge $1 a head for the kiddush, nobody would show up. Why should I pay? I got jolted home. The kiddush is free. Somebody sponsored it. There's a kiddush. You can't even get Jews away from the free food. Get them away from the gold and the silver. We'll see later on when they're splitting at a sea. They're gathering gold and silver at the Yam Suf. Moshe Rabbeinu has to move them away. They're very unpopular. Pull Jews away from where there's booty. There's free gold and silver, and Moshe Rabbeinu's got to pull them away. That did not go over well with them. Yet over here, Hashem says to them, hey, Moshe Rabbeinu, please, you got to get the people to ask for the gold and silver from the Egyptians. Why? Why do they need convincing? Why do the Jews need convincing over here? So, there are different answers. Anybody got an idea? Why would you need convincing here?
So, imagine that I'm beaten down all my life, like I'm a slave or whatever, and then suddenly I'm told that I can go into the house of a killer, like a Hell's Angel, the person maybe who's beaten and bullied me, and that I can go in and ask him for all the stuff in his house. I would be terrified. Okay, good. Not bad. You're very, very close. One of the ideas is if a guy was in jail his whole life, you tell him you're getting out of jail, but just ask the guy for gold. Say, listen, I don't want to give him any reason to chase me. I'm happy to get out of jail. Don't go back and don't go asking for it. Just get me out of here. Mm-hmm. Right, just get me out of here without giving them an excuse. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why Kodesh Baruch Hu did it. That they should have an excuse to change the Jewish people, because that'll get them to the sea where eventually he could drown them. Mm. And one of the reasons, and the Jewish people are going to do it. So one of the ideas here is that the Jews should, what do you call it? The other idea here, there are commentaries that say that, let's use an example. You help you see a little old lady getting off the bus, and you help her carry her bags on a hot day. You carry her bags for a couple of blocks to her house. And then she turns around and she says, oh, wow, thank you very much. That's such a nice mitzvah here. I want to give you 20 shekels. Would you take the money?
No.
Why not?
100 shekels.
All right, I know. That's why I said 20 shekels. Yeah, I didn't want to take any chances. Everything's got its price. But let's stick with. Would you take 100? Would you take 100 shekels?
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not. You moved to a probably. Yeah, okay. Probably not. Why not? You're saying because why not? So a lot of people. I don't want to sell my mitzvah. What does that mean? You don't want to sell your mitzvah? It's true. By the way, if we get paid for it, you're worried about reward in the world to come. I'm not so sure we're holding by that. Maybe you are. I'm not. There's a certain feeling. Right now, I feel very noble. I don't want to sell that feeling.
You enjoyed
If I take I enjoyed the feeling of nobility. I did something very, very, very unselfish, very, very giving, and I feel good about myself. If I take the money, I'm going to feel, it loses. My stature will be reduced in her eyes. The feeling that my stature is at a certain level, that's not something I want to sell. I enjoy that feeling too much.
Oh, we just haven't figured out how much it's worth.
That's true. My stature has a price. Yeah, everything has a price. But it is essentially, the Egyptians are looking at the Jewish people as people on a very, very high level. They've seen a demonstration of what God thinks of the Jewish people. For the Jewish people, they're going to turn around and say, oh, and by the way, let me have some gold on the way out. They were running the risk of reducing what we look like in the eyes of the Egyptians. And therefore, Hashem says to Moshe, convince the Jewish people, whatever they're thinking, whether they're worried about being chased or whether nobility, whatever it is, get them to ask for the gold because that's part of my plan. Now, I want to tell you, this is one of the most important concepts that I want to show you right now because this is the Meshech Chochmah, and this is fundamental. Vayitein Hashem es Gehinom b'nei Mitzrayim. Hashem puts the, how does the arts go to charm? Favor in the eyes of the Egyptian. Gama ish Moshe godol meod be'eretz Mitzrayim be'enei avdei paro uve'enei ham. The man Moshe was very great in Egypt, in the eyes of the servants of Paro and in the common people. Now, avdei paro always refers to the inner circle of Paro, the magicians, the sorcerers. We found the Khartoumim, the most sophisticated people in Egypt. And Moshe Rabbeinu is very impressive. Now, the Meshech Chochmah says, look at the order over here. It says, Gam Ha'ish Moshe. Why does it say the man Moshe? Gam Ha'ish Moshe. Godol me'od be'enei Eretz Mitzrayim, be'enei avdei paro uve'enei ha'am. So the Meshech Chochmah says an important life principle. People ask me all the time, how do we know who the Gedolim are? How do we know who the Torah leaders are? What's the answer? The answer is consensus of whom? No.
Whoever you ask, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It's the consensus of the other Gedolim. Because only the Gedolim could recognize who the Gedolim are. We then hear from the other Gedolim, and the Gedolim could recognize who the Gedolim are, because the we know that Reb Moshe Feinstein considered the Stipler one of the Gedolim, and the two of them considered Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky one of the Gedolim. The fact that the people themselves look at something and say, wow, we're impressed. You don't have the skills. We don't have the skills to be able to measure it. If you needed an expert surgeon, if a person needed a skilled doctor, would you go and you've got 100 of your friends telling you he's a really good doctor. And then there's another skilled surgeon, 2 or 3 skilled surgeons say, well, this surgeon's actually a better surgeon than him. The classic example is in Israel. They have a medical referral agency. You call up this guy, he's an expert on medical referral. 10 people are telling you to go to Dr. A, and the medical referral expert tells you to Dr. B. Who would you go to? I'd go to Dr. B because he's the medical referral. He knows, this is the guy who's really done the research and he knows what's important. These guys just know they went to the doctor and he worked for them, so they figure he's an expert because they're still alive. Right? Whereas the medical referral guy, he knows exactly who's good. I mean, this medical referral guy can tell a person 2 people have broken hands that need surgery, but he can tell you based on the surgery, this person has to go to Hadassah and Kerem, and the other guy has to go to Italy because there's a specialist on that middle finger surgery over there. This is how good this guy is. So when it comes to Torah scholarship, if you would ask your average Egyptian living out in the villages of Egypt at the time, is Moshe Rabbeinu a great man? What would they tell you? Oh, nothing like Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? What would they base that on? They base that on the fact, well, he saw miracles. This is unbelievable. Guy's unbelievable. He's good. Yeah, he's the best. Moshe's great. He's a great rabbi. Right? Well, what about the inner circle? What about the inner circle of Paro who are more sophisticated, have had more contact with Moshe Rabbeinu? Gam ha'ish Moshe, the man Moshe, not the miracles of Moshe. Ha'ish Moshe, Gadol Me'od Be'eretz Yisrael Be'enei Avdei Paro. Who recognizes the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu first? As a human being, as a person. The inner circle, Enei Avdei Paro. And then, Be'enei Ha'am, they spread it to the people outside. But the people themselves do not possess the expertise in choosing Torah leadership. What the common people, what the common Jewish people consider a leader or a great man is irrelevant. Doesn't mean it's inaccurate. It could be he is. But what people at a lower level consider a Torah giant is irrelevant because they haven't got the knowledge to know what is or isn't. Who can determine that? Only the people who themselves are at that level because they recognize what leadership is, they recognize what greatness is. If you take a common example, lahavdil, in a football game, right? So the fans, we look at the quarterback, the guy who threw, the guy who caught, the guy who ran. That's basically how we judge people. The people on the field, the experts will tell you it has to do with the left tackle. Because the left tackle is giving the quarterback an extra 1.3 seconds, and therefore the quarterback is looking good, and the other guy, the whole thing is based on the left tackle. I don't even know who the left tackle is. I know his name. I only see the quarterback, and I see the guy who caught the ball. That's all I saw. And the coach, I had a guy once here at Ohr Somayach who played high school football. He was a linebacker in high school football. He said the coach started yelling at somebody because as they snapped the ball, one of the other linebackers, he moved his right foot back before his left foot. I don't know. I only know they got feet. That's all I know. And that makes all the difference. Why? I have no idea. I'm not skilled enough to know. I know that this guy threw it and this guy caught it. That's about as much. That's why the fans are always yelling, "Go for it!" 4th and 1, go for it! And they punt because they know that if they go for it, the quarterback would die, right? He'd get killed. How do they know? Because they know. They know. So when it comes to Torah, the Meshech Chochmah is saying, when you hear a lot of noise about somebody, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant because we don't know enough. After it's been determined, then we could look and we could see. Reb Chaim Kanievsky was not considered Reb Chaim Kanievsky because we thought so. It's because the people of close enough quality could tell you who he is. And that's how all Torah leadership is determined. That's how greatness of Torah is determined. It's the people at the top who could tell you who's at the top. People at the bottom, we're very, very prone to sensationalism. And we can be drawn. And that's what the Torah is telling you. Ha'ish Moshe, the man Moshe himself, who recognizes him first? The inner circle, because they're more sophisticated. Then it goes out to the rest of the people, because the rest of the people are only thinking in terms of miracles and sensationalism. And that doesn't determine a person's essential qualities. All right, we'll stop here, gentlemen.